Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to draw a sphere, and we're starting with a basic circle. We're going to use oil pastel sticks in a variety of values of blue, so we're going to work from light to dark. We're going to have a color for our table space. I'm going to use just a plain tape roll to get me a basic circle, because again, a sphere comes from a circle. It's all in how we shade it. We need to create the illusion of a light source. So my light source is going to be coming from the upper left here. So we're going to have this glow or a highlight coming from up here where the brightest area of illumination is going to happen. And then that illumination will slowly begin to fade and fade until we have just a sliver of reflected light. Excuse me. And this will produce an oval shaped reflection or cast shadow from our object on the table surface below. So I'm going to kind of create a line that's going to represent sort of our table area. So we have table, we have wall, we have light, and we have the cast shadow. All right, now we're going to start working with our colors. It's always handy to have some paper towel or tissues nearby. The oil pastels are very soft and easy to work with, but they also pick up other colors. And you don't want to start by smearing colors that you don't want in your picture. So a lot of times I kind of have a paper towel to be able to wipe off, clean off any smears. Now, since I'm starting with a highlight, I'm going to start by putting down my white or light color first. It's a little bit like painting or mixing colors. When I mix a tint, I tend to start with my white paint and I slowly add my color to my white. So I'm going to slowly put my highlight on, and then I'm going to very light-handedly continue to lightly enlarge my highlight outward. I'm following a circular or an elliptical kind of a motion because this is an object that's rounded. So no straight lines should be used in creating the shading on this object. Everything should feel arced, rounded, curved. Now we know that the first portion of this should be fairly light in value. So I'm fading my hand pressure while I'm using my white. Very, very light now. Now I'm going to put my white down. I'm going to come back with my light blue color. Expose a little bit more with my paper here. All right, and I'm going to very, very lightly, barely touch my paper, still kind of going in this circular arc. Again, barely touching my paper. Okay, barely. Kind of see it a little bit, kind of going over the top of the white. Now I'm going to start to kind of push a little bit more once I get it to the outer rim. Almost like I'm dealing with the rings of Saturn. Okay, I'm in the outer ring, and now I'm pushing just a little bit more. Nothing too heavy. Okay, now I'm going to fade that out. All right. Believe it or not, I'm going to pick my white back up. The white is going to kind of layer over what I did before, and in doing so, it's going to start to mix the colors together. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to kind of go in little circles. Little circles. And it's going to start to kind of mix those, so you almost have a baby blue color now, right? So everything is very circular still. All right. You can kind of still go in arcs if you want to go in arcs. I'm cool with that. I'm going to go now kind of go into the arc land. All right, I'm going to lighten my hand pressure again. Lighten my hand pressure. Lighten, lighten, lighten. Very light. Very light. I'm going to fade out to nothing. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up the blue one. My blue one's kind of dirty. I'm going to clean this regular kind of royal blue one off here a bit. I'm going to start to mix a little bit of this royal blue one in here. Just a little bit, very lightly. Again, not heavy-handed. Very lightly touch down just a smidge over where I left off with the other one. Okay, and I'm going to take him almost, but not to the end of my sphere. Notice I said sphere, not circle, because we're starting to make this feel rounded already. Now, I'm going to pick and go back one to my pale blue, and I'm going to kind of blend and merge these two flavors together just a little bit here at the interim. Okay. Everything's very light. Nothing's really heavy-handed. Now I'm going to bring in this big dark guy. I've got sort of a navy color. To feel the weightedness of the bottom shadow here, I'm going to pull a little weight in just right at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to bring this guy down here and very lightly just kind of pull him up a bit. Okay, now we have this little light sliver down here. This is what we call the reflected light. The light's shining here, but that means around the other side of this ball, it's receiving a great deal of light, enough that it's going to go on the back side of the ball. So this light back here is actually coming from the front part of the ball that we cannot see currently. And it kind of goes backwards in brightness. So we have this little illumination that happens right there, right up against that super dark. I tend to use the crisp edge back here of the dark one to get that really crisp edge right up against that reflected light. So it's really crisp, like that, okay? Now, we have a shadow. Well, the shadow is not going to be blue because my table is a different color. For shadows, whatever the color of the table, the shadow will be a slightly darker version of the table color because the table is being shaded, okay? So if I have a green table, okay, I am shading my table a lovely flavor of green. Okay. That means if something is hovering over my green table, putting it out of light in some way, then my table is going to appear a little bit darker in color. Okay. So I'm going to need to put a slightly darker color of green underneath my blue sphere. So I'm going to go around my sphere with a little bit of regular table color, a la green here. Okay, giving my basic green color. So we're giving it some basic stuff here. I'm going to lay in just a really, really light-handed black inside of this shadow space. I'm going to be super dusty, barely touching the paper, kind of black here. We'll get a little bit darker in some areas. I'll explain that in a moment. So we've put down just sort of a dusty layer there. Okay, so we'll come back with our green over the top of it. And you can see how it's kind of graying it just a little bit. Notice I'm kind of shading horizontally. Table surfaces run left to right or right to left. This equates for us the feeling that something is laying down flat, horizontally. That's why we did not color using a straight line at all on our sphere. We wanted our sphere to feel rounded. So to do that, we had to follow an arc. So to feel the flatness of the table, we had to use a horizontal motion. So right now, I'm coming back with just even a little bit more black right underneath the direct sphere, right underneath where it's seated. It tends to have a little bit of a richer shadow right underneath where it's plopped on the table. It's going to have a little bit of a richer cast where it's touching down. It's going to kind of fade out a little bit from there, but a little bit richer where it comes into contact. And then it kind of fades from there. So you can kind of work yourself out some fades. All right. You can always give yourself a wall color if you would like. A lot of times I invite students to either keep the horizontal going, or you could give yourself a vertical. You can also illuminate if you'd like, or give the feeling or add the feeling of where the light's coming from by lightening or illuminating, if you wish, the table color. You could lighten the green of the table from the side where the light source is coming. I could come in here with a lighter green and say, okay, since the light's coming from over here, maybe it would be smart to put some lighter green on this side and let the lighter green kind of fade as we work our way over to the dark side. The dark side, they have cookies over there, right? All right, so we kind of have where the bright is happening and then where the dark is happening. And again, if you want to do something with some illusion of brightness or something in the background, you could always do that. You could say, okay, I'm going to put some orange or something in the background, and you say, okay, I want to put something back here. Where you could do verticals or horizontals in the background. Okay, maybe brighter here, maybe get something darker or richer as you get further away from the light source. So you play that understanding of where your value is actually happening and how it affects the space around your object as well as your object itself. All right. So there you go, guys. All right. Light-handed is the key. Do not press down hard.